Most Americans do not trust Donald Trump on Ukraine. According to Pew, nearly 60% of adults surveyed said they're either not too confident or not at all confident that the president can make wise decisions about Russia's war. Joining us now is former New York Congressman Mondaire Jones and Semafor Politics reporter Dave Weigel. Dave, explain to me the politics of Donald Trump's decision-making. How's it going to play?
With Republicans, we've seen that Republican voters follow the president wherever he leads on this. So you saw once he was critical of the war in Ukraine, said he could stop it in a day, which hasn't happened. You saw Republican support for the war falling. You've seen Republican support for funding Ukraine with whatever it needs rising over the last few months as the story fell out of the news. Now, this is not something that Republicans see as a defining election issue, a midterm issue. It's just something that doesn't comport with the president's overall strategy of withdrawing military commitments wherever he can and using military forces to, well, frankly, be in American cities, but also quick strikes that help our allies. So it doesn't. There's not a lot of congruence between what the president ran and what his base likes and what he's doing. It is driven by Russia and its desires and its understanding of how to get what it wants out of the president.
What about what happened on Friday, Dave? Vladimir Putin spoke first at the news conference that wasn't a news conference. No questions were taken. He spoke at length from notes, talking about what he believes he got out of that meeting. Donald Trump winged it after that, said almost nothing, but was very congratulatory toward Vladimir Putin, tried to flatter his aides who were sitting there in the front row, and didn't come away with anything. I mean, he walked in there saying he was going to try to work out a ceasefire, and if he wasn't going to get it, he would walk away. But it seemed like, even Fox News said it appeared Donald Trump got steamrolled. So if Fox News is coming out and saying, what the heck is going on here, how does that affect voters?
Well, two things from the meeting. One, Putin does seem to have, I wouldn't say put the idea in the president's head, but reminded him to say something and do something about states that allow mail voting. So this came up, and the president put out a Truth Social post about it, and Republicans and Democrats are in their ways reacting to it today. And on the second part, when I talk about the Russians have a good understanding of what Trump wants to do, he is in a sort of campaign, an ad hoc campaign for a Nobel Peace Prize. The White House puts out messaging about it all the time. You could look at the calendar for October when there's going to be an announcement here. If the Russians look at what Trump is doing and say, you can draw this out because what he's interested in is something to take to Norway and get credit for, that's pretty astute. It's not clear what the demand, from preventing World War III is the one consistent Trump demand we've heard here, which was being prevented long before he took office. Otherwise, the Russians don't have many domestic concerns. They have Trump-related concerns, and they figured out what to do about them.
Vladimir Putin and the relationship with Donald Trump has always been kind of a head-scratcher, and Democrats have run on this, on the confusion of it. They've said, why is Donald Trump so flattering toward Vladimir Putin? What the heck was going on in 2016? You heard Donald Trump bring up 2016 again, even standing next to Vladimir Putin on Friday. How did Democrats take what's happening right now, both Donald Trump appearing next to Vladimir Putin, rolling out the red carpet for him, and these negotiations, which so far have not borne any fruit, for a ceasefire or an end of fighting in Ukraine?
Democrats have never won an election over the issue of the Ukraine-Russia war. It is something that has now for years been deeply unpopular, actually, among the American people. And so it's so interesting that Donald Trump, who took this issue and made it a popular one for him on the campaign trail, saying that he would wind this war down and stop sending so much money over to Ukraine in this, what he would say anyway, an endless war, has now squandered something that he had a competitive advantage on. Now, taking a step back, this war is really important for us to side with Ukraine on. I mean, all this president had to do was continue on the trajectory of what Democrats in Congress like myself and then President Biden supported, facilitated, which was and has been a war that Ukraine has defied expectations in. I mean, how many people predicted that the war would end like this? And now here we are years later. You know, I remember going on a congressional delegation to so many different countries, rallying support for our effort in Ukraine, making sure that we can beat back the ambitions of a madman who would like to not just stop at Ukraine, but to go into Poland, and to restore the Soviet order. This is a direct challenge to the national security and geopolitical interests of the United States.
Do Democrats stand up and say that, or do they just let this issue pass? Is this, as you said, it's not a winning issue. It's not something that people are really paying attention to.
I think it's turning into a winning issue. When you look at the way that this polling has shifted, Americans, for the first time, or outside of the Democratic Party anyway, are scratching their heads and saying, why would we facilitate Ukraine giving up any aspect of its territorial integrity, like any part of this country, to a villain named Vladimir Putin? And they see this president fail to fulfill his promise in terms of winding this war down. And so I think this is a good issue increasingly for the Democrats, but it's not going to win the 2026 elections.
Do they touch what he just said about the next elections? He's talking about mail-in voting, yeah, but he made a joke about being in a war in 3.5 years. And I guess if we're in a war, I guess I don't have to have an election.
Yeah, look.
And there's growing concern that Donald Trump will try to stay in office past his constitutional 2-term limit.
Yeah, when has he ever, shown an interest in abiding the Constitution? We got to get through 2026, and there is a redistricting war underway, something that I know well, given my own experience here in New York back in 2022. Let's see whether Republicans are able to gerrymander their way into the majority again in 2026, despite all of the unpopularity of their policies. So I think it's why you see Gavin Newsom increasingly become a leader in the Democratic Party on this, because he's one of the few people actually fighting back against this administration. Understand, you got to fight power with power, and not, with one hand tied behind your back, or, this woe is me mentality when you're trying to use a playbook that has long been eviscerated since 2016.
Gavin Newsom's Twitter feed is something to behold right now. Mondaire Jones, thank you very much. Dave Weigel, thank you as well.